That production of Dr. Fisher of Geneva is one of the programmes being reviewed by Ludovic Kennedy and his guests in Did You See? Next Sunday on BBC Two at 8:50. BBC Two's Film of the Week tomorrow night is Norma Ray. Sally Field stars as a worker at the local textile mill, determined to change the factory conditions and create a better life.
Mama, you feel all right? Mama? Mama, can you hear me? Mama? Mama! She didn't hear one word I say. She doesn't hear you right now.
Now, you know that happens, Norma Ray. It happens all the time.
Well, it doesn't happen to my mama.
It'll pass off. It's just temporary.
Oh, well, that makes it okay. She's only deaf for 1 hour. She's only deaf for 2 hours. She's only deaf all day.
She can get herself another job.
What other job in this town? This is the only job.
I'll give her a note. They send her home.
Come on, Mama. They don't care anything about you.
Sally Field stars as the belligerent Norma Ray tomorrow evening at 9 o'clock here on 2. It's now 11:10 and time for Monday's edition of Newsnight, introduced by Donald McCormick.
Good evening from Blackpool, a day of 2 defeats for Neil Kinnock and victory and defiance from Arthur Scargill. Conference rejected the leadership's wishes over how far to criticise the police in the miners' dispute and over giving all members the right to reselect MPs. Arthur Scargill won conference over to total support for the miners' cause. This evening he defies a court order to appear on Thursday and face a charge of contempt.
Here in London, later in the programme, we re-examine the sensational events of the Cheltenham spy scandal, which sent Geoffrey Prime to prison for 38 years. Today, Prime's wife, Rona, has published her own first full account of how and why she gave her husband away to the police. Tonight, she talks to Newsnight about that agonising decision and about the traitor she still loves.
And so he just was in chaos. He just left the evidence around. I mean, that is dreadful. That is not a ruthless spy, calculating and cold, no feelings. It's not the person at all that they put over at the trial.
Tomorrow morning, 300,000 copies of Britain's first free daily newspaper will be delivered in the Midlands. Tonight we ask if the daily news will be bad news for the conventional dailies we're used to paying for.
And the law moved into another industrial dispute today. 12 Camel-Laird workers were arrested at Birkenhead for contempt of court, while 29 others continued their sit-in on an oil rig with a dance. In India, calm has again been restored at the Holy Temple at Amritsar. It was overrun by Sikh militants again today, and hundreds of arrests were made.
But first here in Blackpool, a year ago, Neil Kinnock, then freshly elected as Labour leader, set himself to put the mark of authority on a party that was threatening to become unleadable. Today, in the conference that should have started to show the Kinnock touch, the first day wasn't really one on which the leaders can look back with much joy. Neil Kinnock lost the vote that he'd put his personal authority behind over letting all party members reselect MPs. The party tied itself unconditionally to the miners' cause, and no one knows how far that will be an electoral liability. And conference went much further than the National Executive wanted in putting all the blame for picket line disturbances on what was called police violence against the miners. As if that wasn't enough, this evening it became clear that Arthur Scargill could face jail this week. Last Friday, 5 working miners won a court order saying the strike is unlawful. Mr. Scargill ignored it. Today, he was ordered to appear in court on Thursday or face charges of contempt. Vincent Hanna now on the news that has kept the temperature here boiling.
Mr. Scargill's writ quickly became the event of the evening as the miners' leader unveiled it at several meetings around Blackpool. It followed a meeting of his national executive at which defiance of this latest legal move was endorsed unanimously. His biggest opportunity to express his feelings came at a packed meeting organised by Labour Herald, the far-left newspaper.
4:30 this afternoon, into the conference hall without a delegate's badge, without a visitor's ticket, steps around from the High Court to issue a writ against Arthur Scargill, the President of the NUM, seeking that on Thursday of this week I should be committed to Pentonville Prison for being in contempt of court. I want to make it clear that if the offence I've committed is a contempt, then I plead guilty, because the only contempt I've committed is to fight for my class and fight for my...
I asked Mr. Scargill for his version of the reason behind today's writ.
I understand it's because of a television interview I did last Friday night on Channel 4 News, when I said that the High Court ruling would not be accepted by the National Union of Mine Workers and that we should continue to apply the decisions of the NUM Special Delegate Conference and the NEC. And that, of course, is the position as it remains today.
And what does the committal writ that you've got today, what does that tell you to do?
It basically tells me that the National Executive Committee cannot recognise the strike action currently sweeping the British coalfield as official. And secondly, it says that we cannot instruct or advise our members not to cross picket lines. In other words, it's declaring that not only is the strike to be illegal and unlawful, but moreover, the union officials are restrained from doing anything other than basically get members back to work. There is no way that we're going to accept that, and at a special National Executive Committee meeting tonight, we have reaffirmed total support and declared that the strike action under Rule 41 is official and will continue to be official.
You prepared to go to prison?
If necessary, I'm prepared to go to prison for my beliefs, because I believe that most people will concede that there is moral value on my side in fighting to preserve jobs and to preserve an industry. And I think that it's an imposition on the part of anyone to try and say that this strike after 7 months is not legal. There is no question that the National Union of Mine Workers, within its rules, has declared this strike official. It will continue to be official, and we shall continue to say to our members, do not cross picket lines.
Well, it transpires tonight that 4 other officials of the NUM have also received writs. Peter Heathfield and Mick McGahey, and an official from Yorkshire and one from Derbyshire. Technically, this is a writ for contempt brought at the suit of 2 members of the NUM, and it's returnable at the High Court in London on Thursday. At that hearing, which Mr. Scargill says he will not attend, a judge can impose a fine, a sentence of imprisonment, sequestrate the union's assets, or indeed do nothing at all. And it would be an extraordinary event if any national official of the NUM were actually sent to prison. Such a thing has not happened since the famous 5 Dockers in 1972, the Pentonville 5. There's also no doubt that Arthur Scargill would find going to Pentonville as politically useful as he would find it physically uncongenial, which is why its inevitability is, I think, suspect.
Vincent Hanna on the challenge to Arthur Scargill that he may yet turn into an opportunity. Certainly, though, Mr. Scargill can look back with pretty unalloyed satisfaction on today's debates. It wasn't just the conference backed the miners' cause, it did so without a shred of criticism. The miners now have total support from the Labour movement for their view of the economic arguments in the dispute. They've also turned the violence issue onto its head. It's not miners' violence on the picket lines. It is, according to a series of motions today, all passed, all the fault of the police.
Emotionally, the miners have been pushing out an open door here at the Labour conference. It's hard to find doubters on any aspect of their cause. The strike has divided the union and split the country. It has united the Labour movement. The miners and their women bring a faint sense of carnival with them. Their feeling of unity and determination is tangible. But until the last minute, their leaders took every opportunity of pleading their cause. When Peter Heathfield, the miners' secretary, spoke to a small but crowded lunchtime meeting, his detailed descriptions of alleged police maltreatment had his audience drawing in its breath in sympathy.
I will talk about picket line violence when the accusers of picket violence are prepared to talk about police violence, police intimidation, police harassment, because all the evidence indicates a whitewash.
And that was only the tiniest curtain raiser for the events of the afternoon, which banished what doubts there were that the Labour Party might be able to keep its distance from the miners for political reasons. That is now impossible.
Last month, the miners' leader, Arthur Scargill, took the Trades Union Congress by storm. Today, the Labour conference turned into a victory rally for the miners as they gave their president a standing ovation even before he'd started. Arthur Scargill's speech pressed every button calculated to appeal to his audience. His instinct was uncanny, the reaction almost Pavlovian.
There are no uneconomic pits. There are only pits which have been deliberately starved of investment by successive governments. If that investment had been put in, those pits would have been viable, producing valuable coal for the British people.
Labour is solid behind that view of the economics of the dispute. This afternoon, Mr. Scargill swung conference utterly behind his view that picket line violence is everyone's fault except the miners.
We've suffered attacks on the picket lines from a state police force armed in full riot gear. Yes, we've got violence, state violence.